Welcome to This Explainer. It's pretty wild to think about, but before you even open your mouth to say a single word, you've already told the room volumes about who you are and what you're feeling. It's totally true. Our bodies are constantly broadcasting data. We're essentially acting as our own personal projectors, displaying this incredibly complex, silent language at every single moment of the day. So today, we're going to decode that language.
Okay, let's dive into this. Here is our outline for today. 1. The universal silent language. 2. Decoding the human face. 3. Microexpressions and hidden truths. 4. 3 types of thinkers. And finally, 5. Mastering nonverbal connections.
Section 1. The universal silent language, hardwired for survival.
So body language isn't just about, modern social interaction or being polite at a dinner party. It actually emerged hundreds of thousands of years ago out on the savannah to help our ancestors communicate threats and basic survival needs without making a sound. And to understand why this still works today, we have to look at the brain's limbic system. Think of the limbic system as your brain's primitive survival software. It's just constantly running in the background, scanning your environment. When it sees a threat, it reacts instantly to keep us safe, and it moves our bodies whether we consciously want it to or not.
Our expressions actually serve a purely biological function. Like when we experience fear, our body literally expands the chest to take in oxygen and widens our eyes to increase our visual field so we can spot a threat. On the flip side, think about the universal expression for disgust, wrinkling the nose. That actually serves to physically cut off our nasal passages so we don't accidentally inhale or ingest toxic substances. It's just pure biological utility.
Moving on to Section 2, decoding the human face, the universal alphabet.
The face is absolutely the ultimate canvas for these hardwired signals, and learning to read it is one of the most essential skills we can ever develop. Beneath the skin of your face, there are precisely 43 distinct muscles. They're intricately woven together, completely dedicated to helping us navigate our social and physical world. And what's truly staggering is that those 43 muscles can combine to create over 10,000 different visible expressions. Just think about that for a second. 10,000 distinct configurations constantly broadcasting your inner emotional state out to the world. Because of all this complexity, researchers spent 40 years developing what's called the Facial Action Coding System, or FACS. This is essentially the definitive scientific alphabet of human emotion. It breaks down every possible anatomical movement and assigns it a specific number. For example, a trained observer using FACS doesn't just look at someone and see a scared face. No, they see a highly specific codified firing of muscles 1, 2, 4, 5, 7, 20, and 26. Using this exact coding system, science has identified 7 universally recognized expressions that cross all cultural boundaries: joy, surprise, contempt, sadness, anger, disgust, and fear. And we know for a fact they are entirely hardwired thanks to this fascinating study by Professor Matsumoto. He actually analyzed the faces of blind Paralympic judo athletes. These athletes, who had been blind from birth, produced the exact same facial muscle configurations for joy, puffing the cheeks and engaging the muscles around the eyes, as sighted athletes did. It definitively proved these expressions are innate. We don't just learn them by watching other people. All right, Section 3, Microexpressions and Hidden Truths, the subconscious leak. So what exactly happens when we try to hide those hardwired emotions during our day-to-day social interactions? Well, we enter the subconscious realm. The legendary Charles Darwin actually laid the groundwork for this entire concept. He noted that sometimes we're so overwhelmed with emotion that despite our absolute best attempts to suppress them, they simply leak out. This leakage happens because there's a literal neural tug-of-war going on in your brain. Imagine you're talking to a boss you secretly can't stand. You consciously try to force a polite, professional smile, but your limbic system, reacting to your true hidden feeling, fights for control over your face. The result of that battle? A microexpression. It's this split-second, fleeting flash of your true emotion that just bursts onto your face before your conscious brain can pull it back. Even the absolute best liars in the world can't stop this biological leakage.
When you apply this to spotting deception, the really crucial thing to remember is that there is no single Pinocchio effect. People often assume liars avoid eye contact or fidget in one specific way, but honestly, that's a total myth. Instead, experts rely on a binary paradigm: comfort versus discomfort. When someone is deceptively stressed, you're going to see pacifying behaviors that indicate discomfort. Things like lightly touching the neck, wiping their hands, or wringing their fingers.
Compare that to the relaxed, crossed legs and open posture of someone who is in a high comfort state.
Which brings us to Section 4, 3 types of thinkers, reading cognitive styles. Now we're moving from spotting deception to understanding pure cognition, because body language actually reveals a ton about how your brain processes information and memories. Let's do a quick interactive test together, based on the work of communications expert Lynn Franklin. I want you to think of a really important memory right now, maybe a childhood birthday. Got it? Okay, how are you remembering it? Are you seeing it in your mind like a movie with pictures and images? Are you hearing the sounds and the conversations? Or are you recalling exactly how you felt in that very moment?
So, depending on your answer, you actually fall into one of 3 distinct cognitive styles. Statistically speaking, 75% of the population are lookers who process the world visually. About 20% are listeners who process auditorily. And the remaining 5% are touchers, or tactile thinkers, who process through feelings.
And this brilliantly illustrates how you can identify each thinker through their body cues. Lookers, the visual thinkers, usually stand tall, look up when recalling memories, and demand intense eye contact. Listeners, our auditory thinkers, often adopt what's called a telephone posture, like resting their head in their hand. They look down and to the left, and might even click a pen or mumble to themselves as they process sounds. Touchers, the tactile thinkers, will literally lean into your physical space, look down to access their feelings, and they might appropriately touch your arm during a chat.
Finally, Section 5, Mastering Nonverbal Connections, Applying the Science. Now that we have this incredibly rigorous academic framework for facial coding, microexpressions, and cognitive processing, how do we actually use it out in the real world to build deep empathetic relationships? Well, it all comes down to accommodation. First, observe their baseline behavior. Second, figure out if they're a looker, a listener, or a toucher. And third, mirror them. If you're talking to a listener, do not stare them down. Intense eye contact will literally freak them out. Instead, look away while you speak and use auditory phrases like, "That sounds good." But if they're a looker, you want to hold that eye contact and say something like, "I see what you mean." You're adapting to their biological processing style.
So I'm going to leave you with this final thought. You now possess the scientific alphabet to decode the unspoken world around you. The next time you walk into a room, a meeting, or even just a local coffee shop, are you just going to listen to the noise of the words being spoken, or will you actually tune in and decode the fascinating silent stories that everybody is constantly broadcasting? Thank you so much for joining this explainer, and hey, happy observing!